Hello everyone! I recently saw a video talking about the attention span. Again. I'll leave the link in the description so you can check it out. It was talking about how our brains are basically turning to mush and that we are losing the ability to do basic tasks. It's from Ashley Embers and she made a very interesting point. What can we do to undigitize ourselves? I'll leave her video so you can watch it, but one of the things I noticed that she did was use a wristwatch that wasn't a smartwatch, and to combat doom scrolling in the morning, she got an alarm clock. She did other things as well, but it got me thinking to what I can do. What things do you need to be digital and what things can you learn to do yourself? For example, I am trying to write a novel and I need to write the book online, but I can take notes on paper and draft the book and prepare the book offline. It will make it easier for me and save storage on my device. A lot of things that are digital are due to convenience. Some things down to safety, but most things that we use today are convenience-based. For example, the calculator. We should be able to work some equations out in our head or on our fingers if we're that stuck. We should be able to recognise patterns to help us remember things. The reason I don't use a physical alarm clock is because the noise would scare me, and for as long as I've had my phone, I've always used a specific song as my alarm, so I probably would be terrified if I had a different one. Either way, I don't want to jump out of my sleep, and I'm so used to hearing that sound now that I know what it means. By the way, for the majority of my book, I'm doing most of the note-taking with pen and paper, and I have a board that I use to plan out the book, which is very fun. I could do all of the story preparation on my phone, but again, we have the storage issue, and if anything happens to my phone, everything goes down the drain. But it's unlikely that anything will happen to the board as it's stuck to my door. Also, here's something I haven't spoken about. It's really fun preparing everything the non-digital way. Getting all the cards ready, preparing everything, cutting things up so that they're ready and I can use them. That's fun, and yes, there will be mistakes, but I think we should be allowed to make them. Not everything needs to be perfect, which is easier to have a perfect look when you're on the phone. But when you do things by hand, your imperfections show, and that shouldn't be bad because we are humans and humans make mistakes. I remember hearing somewhere that people don't want to learn hobbies anymore because the idea of making mistakes is something that they don't want to think about. Have a hobby that's difficult. Make mistakes. That's how we learn. Something else I was doing at the beginning of 2020 was when we had trouble going outside, I said, fine, I'll just bring the outside indoors, and spent 5 years trying to perfect growing a fruit tree. I unfortunately turned a lot of those fruit trees into compost, but it was worth it if I've got one that can at least live. Going back to the writing, it has actually been proven that people who put pen to paper to shape letters over typing on the keyboard have more actions and more memories to use, whereas the keyboard has the same motion over and over again, and you can tell yourself it's a different letter, but your brain does not understand that when you're typing it. To your brain, it's just another repetitive movement that you're doing. I will say there are some things I wouldn't recommend going back to the old way for, and one of those is map reading, because if you get lost, it may not be safe. But just keep in mind things like Google Maps one time accidentally sent someone to a place that used to have a bridge, and luckily that person knew that the bridge was no longer there, so they were there to tell the tale. But if they weren't aware of the situation, they were in the dark and it could have gone horribly wrong. It's funny, the reason I decided to start looking into these options was because my phone told me that my stuff was taking up too much storage. So I had one of two options. Either I fill up my phone to the best of its capacity, or I go back to analog. Yes, technically this will probably be a bit more expensive, but it's fun, and if anyone wants to see the progress that I'm doing with anything I've mentioned in this video, let me know. So if you're trying to do things to lessen the usage of your phone, maybe try using pen and paper if you can. Maybe get an alarm clock if you can and watch. If you really want to, get a step counter. Maybe write a physical diary that's pretty and that you can decorate yourself. And it might be an idea to have a physical copy of some things as well as a digital copy. But some things are really fun when you do them yourself. One thing that was brought out in Ashley's video is rather than having to just resist your phone, make it that you don't need it, and that's why I suggested the things above. Because, as an example, I did a similar thing with my dog. When he was getting used to the cats and the cats would attack him, his natural instinct would be to be threatening. So what I did was every time that he got hurt, I immediately let him get a tug toy and do that, so that instead of associating the anger with getting revenge on the cats, he associated it with taking the anger out on his toy. Why don't you do the same? Instead of immediately being digital, why don't you associate the thing you need with analog if you can? And one of the reasons that I found out is that we are more susceptible to need the happy receptors to be satiated as soon as we wake up. There are other things that Ashley mentioned in her video, and I really think you should check it out, because these are the things that I found important to me, and I'm sure that there are other things that you can put in the comments to tell me about. What I will say is this: start writing by hand or start doing things like knitting. Be prepared for the hand cramping because you're not going to be used to it, but it does get better the more you do it, and then you can go from doctor's handwriting to Victorian school perfection. What can we do to strengthen our brain function and stave off dementia? I play Scrabble Go because crosswords are very good. I also play cards, and I do a lot of old-fashioned stuff like knitting and things like that. Things that require a lot of patterns and concentration are very good. Plus, I have a subscriber who plays music. To be able to learn that and concentrate, and he has his challenges, but he doesn't let that stop him. He can't see, yet he can play very well. He doesn't get bored easily, and he's an inspiration to having a good attention span. By the way, going back to writing, if you're finding it difficult to come off the phone, but you also want to get used to writing again, because of my arthritis, I've had to use a stylus for my phone. That way, I'm not using my fingers, but it also means you can start practicing writing shapes again. That way, you can trick your brain into thinking that you've started writing on paper, while also still writing on the screen. But it's the first step. It will also cut eye strain because you don't get blue light from writing on paper, however bright the paper is. But going back to the question I did in another video, if all the screens went blank, what would you do? I know that I could still write my book because it's mainly set up on paper. I can also read hardback and paperback books. I wouldn't be able to tell everyone on here what I'm reading, but I can still do it while I wait for the screens to come back. Also, if you read physical books, you can have a unique bookmark rather than just the one the phone gives you. It can be as pretty or as uninteresting as you like, but at least you have a choice. While I wouldn't be able to use Audible, I can read a book for myself. Also, speaking of me writing a book, no one has the patience to listen to storytelling anymore. People want you to just get to the point straight up without the long explanation. Where's the fun in that? Also, this book requires a lot of research because it's from a place that I do not live, and there's a lot of history behind it. But who has the attention to spend these days to do all that research? When was the last time you stretched your brain? We need to make sure that we have science all around our cranium that bans dementia for good. My original reason for doing videos like this was to strengthen our synapses that stop us from having brains like soup. If you're still here, then you're handsome and you're beautiful and well, I'm speechless. I'll let you know next time I see you. Over to the pets. Hello all, this is Sylvie. If you liked what you saw, then subscribe for more. Hey everyone, my name's Bonjour. If you enjoyed yourself, then give it a thumbs up and share it with all your friends. Hi everybody, I'm Jack, and if you had fun, then comment down below and let my mum know if you know any card games.